Hi. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you to both Alia and Lauren for having me. I'm really super excited to connect with all of you and meet all of you. I know your time is precious. As was just mentioned, it's your midterm season. It's also a Wednesday night at a busy time of year. So thank you for being here. Hopefully you will get a lot out of this and it will be well worth your time. So today we are going to have kind of two different sessions. I will introduce myself a bit more as we get into presentation number one, but I'm kind of someone that lives in the and factor. I don't believe that you have to only be one thing. And I think I live that in my own life. And so I consider myself an expert in multiple things. And I think both kind of topics that I come and talk about often can apply to be able to help you. So we'll focus session one. It'll be a bit experiential. We're going to talk about ways that you can use the practice of yoga, the ancient principles of that practice to thrive in your modern life. And then we'll shift gears and talk more from like a work, business, balance, lifestyle, positive psychology, mindset work in our second session, and focus a little bit more on things that you can do there. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen in a minute and ask for your patience on two things. The first is the technology of sharing my screen and making sure that all goes smoothly because I'm not always perfect at that. So I think it should be good and should be all set and ready to go with the presentations, but that's the first thing. And I also, in advance, I think we should be good, but I have a 2.5-year-old at home in the other room who might like pop in with some noises in the background. I'm on my AirPods. Hopefully that's not an issue. I can't make any promises that he's not gonna like end up in a dance party in the other room with his father at some point. So excuse me in advance if that happens, but the co-working space I was planning to do this out of, turns out they close at 7 o'clock. So I had to reconfigure my plans a little bit here. Okay, so with that though, let me get going and just share my screen with this first presentation and we will jump right in. Give me 1 second. Okay, wait. Here we go. All right, can you all see this in here? 5 ways to use. Okay, so as we get started, I am definitely going to leave time at the end for question and answers, things like that. However, if as we go through this, I lost my chat box. Hold on. Okay, have the chat box up. If as we go through, you have questions, you can feel free to pop them into the chat box. I will have that up and make sure that I am paying attention to that as much as possible. So you can definitely pop those questions or comments in there. I want this to certainly serve you and for this to be highly interactive. So whatever you need as we go through can pop in there. And then if there's stuff that you actually want to talk about, we'll save time for that at the end. So let's dive right in. 5 ways to use the ancient practice of yoga to flourish and thrive in your modern life. So in this session, this first one, I am going to show you how you can live a healthier, happier life by changing just 20 minutes of your day. You are all obviously in a graduate program. I know you're doing field work. I know some of you work full time. You have friends and families and all of the things. And so not many of us have the time in that season of life to be like, I'm going to carve out 90 minutes a day for all of the self-care things. So I want this to be practical things that in 20 minutes a day, you can shift your mindset and do things to be able to take care of yourself. And so by the end of our time together, you will learn 5 simple tools to make that happen. And you don't even have to do all 5 of them. You can just choose between them. So let us dive in. So I do ask, if possible, to make the most of our time together. Right now, you make the commitment to yourself to turn off all distractions. And obviously, you're all in a learning program, so I know that you know kind of with how easy it is, I'm sure, to be able to be pulled by your phone or your computer. So be here, be present, turn those off now so that we can make the most of our time together. And we're going to jump right in before I talk about anything else to do a 1-minute reset. And I want to show you how, even if you can't get to the full 20 minutes, how in 1 minute a day, you will be able to fully tune out, reset your energy and do that. So wherever you are, sitting on a desk, chair, floor, whatever feels comfortable for you, I just want you to push yourself 2 more inches away from your computer screen. I want you to close your eyes, let your hands just rest on your thighs, And let's all take 3 deep arriving breaths together. So take a deep breath in through your nose. And then I want you to exhale and sigh that out your mouth. 2 more just like that. Breathe in through your nose. Out through your mouth, exhale. 1 more breath in through your nose. Exhale, sigh that out your mouth. And now I want you to take a moment to call to mind anything that has happened throughout your day so far that needs your attention, or anything that you think might need your attention after this session. Notice the busyness of your thoughts, any buzzing, and just bring them to the forefront of your mind. Acknowledge those thoughts fully. Give them the attention they deserve. And then make the conscious choice to set them aside for the next hour, hour and 15 minutes that we have together. And know that anything that still truly requires your attention will be there waiting for you at the end of this session. Take 1 more full breath in. And 1 more full breath out. Good. And then just let your eyes gently open. And we'll all come back together. All right. So sometimes just that idea of being present and allowing yourself to be here can make a huge difference. So one of the things that I love about this 1-minute reset is that it helps for you to get present, to acknowledge all the things that are making you feel a little crazy and chaotic, which then can help you to gain clarity and allows you to do an energy reset. And the nice thing is that you can do this at any time throughout your day. I literally set my Apple Watch for a minute as we went through that and ended it as it was buzzing. So in 1 minute, it gives you the space to be able to reset depending on anything that's going on. And you can always find a way to focus on your breath, to link it to your mind, and at the end, pull together a thought of gratitude of some kind if you need a little extra juice to keep going, depending on what time of day that is. So that's your first tool that you have, even if you can't make it for 20 minutes a day, you can do it with this 1-minute reset. Okay, so first of all, like I said, it's nice to meet you. My name is Kate Lombardo. I am a 2008 graduate of Rutgers University. Technically then it was the last year, I believe it was Rutgers College. I'm aging myself before everything came together under one banner. I'm also an ERYT 500-hour yoga teacher and trainer. I am the yoga director and partner in a company called Yoga Renew Teacher Training. We are an international online yoga teacher training company. We train thousands of students from all over the world in becoming yoga teachers and then provide continuing education for them as they want to dive deeper into subjects. So not only do I work on creating the courses and teach within our trainings, but I also run a lot of the marketing and business side with my 2 business partners. Been quite an adventure and an exciting thing these last few years, getting to work and connect with students from all over the United States into Australia and New Zealand, across Europe, all via this cool online experience and space. I also work as a business consultant for women who are launching their own businesses, focused on helping them to scale them through automations and tools so that they can free up their time and earn more money to be able to be present with their families or any of the things that they are looking to focus on. I am a mom of soon to be 2. I am 36 weeks pregnant. As I mentioned, I have a 2.5-year-old at home. So in the final countdown for baby number 2 to arrive. So we'll see when that happens, I guess, in the next month. I'm a lover of food, not currently of wine, because as I just mentioned, I'm 36 weeks pregnant, but when the time allows, enjoy a nice glass of red wine. Thank you very much for the congratulations, Becca. I'm also a total fantasy nerd, so give me anything, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, Harry Potter, books, movies, I love it all. I've also been in previous seasons and versions of my life. I worked for 5 years as a high school special education teacher in North Jersey. I went to graduate school to study special education. So I have left that career behind, but that was part of my life formally. And I worked with a lot of social workers in that field. So I have the utmost respect and admiration for all of you for what you're doing. After that, I worked as a freelancer in digital marketing, doing writing and social media. I then owned 2 yoga studios in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is where I live, that I closed during the pandemic, which is when a lot of the challenges began to hit. Those studios went bankrupt. It was a highly stressful time. But now, as I mentioned, I get to run an online business and and talk to people like you, which I'm able to now focus on doing the things that I love. So I've been through many different seasons. Some have been wonderful, some have been stressful. And I love Victor, that House of Dragon finale. No, totally agreed. Left us hanging, and I think it's 2024 when that actually comes back out. But yeah, so I've been through many different kind of seasons of life and shifted and changed along the way. And really what that has allowed for me to do is learn to navigate challenging times, because I think in any time of change, that can also lead to times of stress. And I have leaned heavily on the practice of yoga and meditation, and also the positive psychology stuff that we're going to talk about later in order to navigate that. And that's what I plan to share with you today. So I imagine if you're here thinking about self-care, there are times that all of us go through seasons of feeling stressed. If you have ever felt stressed or you currently feel stressed, I'd love for you to comment in the chat about what's happening. That can be because we're super busy. If you have midterms coming up, I'm sure trying to navigate that and studying, getting all of that situated while navigating the other work can certainly bring on feelings of stress. You may also feel tired. I think that's something that many of us feel in terms of trying to balance all of the different hats that we wear. And probably overwhelmed at times. I know for myself, when I'm feeling stressed and tired, that usually leads to feelings of overwhelming life work, study, and life balance. I can totally see that. I'm sure that this MSW is overwhelming, burnt out, all of those things, right? And I think that when you're going through a program that's as rigorous as what you're all going through, all of these things are very, very normal. There's a lot of commitments that you have. It's not just one thing that you can focus on, especially when you get to a graduate program and you're no longer in the season where school is the only thing that you have to really worry about, as it is, right, when we're in our teenage years or going through undergrad. And so all of these feelings are super, super normal and shared amongst us. But we want to talk about tools and ways that you can try to easily navigate into your life to relieve some of these. So I do promise you that despite all of that, each day of your life can be filled with joy, excitement, balance, and ease. It doesn't mean, and I don't want to sell you on the idea that every single day you're just going to like live this self-care life of face masks and taking a bath each day and feeling like you have all the time in the world. Because I think anyone who likes to sell that idea, it's just not possible for us to do that all the time. There are going to be those seasons of working hard and kind of being in that hustle mode. Many of you, that's the season that you're in right now, but you can still incorporate moments of feeling this balance, this ease, this joy, this excitement. And even that 5, 10, 20 minutes a day can help to give you the juice that you need to carry through during those really challenging times. So it's possible to move from feeling exhausted and drained to feeling energized and fulfilled even during these times of overwhelm. Balancing school and fieldwork, super stressful. Rachel, I fully appreciate that, and I can understand how hard it is to kind of wear all of these hats. It sounds like all of you have many different roles that you're playing in your life, and that can certainly make you feel stretched thin and lead to that overwhelm. And we're going to talk about ways to focus on you for a few minutes a day to hopefully refill your own cup. Okay, so this is where we're going. I want to give you a roadmap of what's going to happen in this first session, and then we'll dive right in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is positive affirmations. And then we're going to talk about ways you can incorporate movement into your daily life. We're going to talk about some breath awareness. We're talking about being present, and then we're going to talk about gratitude, which somehow next week is November. Not sure how that happens, but as we know, we're going to be surrounded by that season of gratitude and Thanksgiving. So let's talk about some practical ways that we can actually use that to make our lives better. So the first thing that I want to talk about and how this is going to work is I'm going to present you with an idea. And then I'm going to talk to you about how yoga talks about this. And as I mentioned, I am a yoga teacher. I am a yoga teacher trainer. I've owned yoga studios. And what I love about this and what I think is so fascinating is yoga is a practice that has been around for thousands of years. And it's kind of cool because it's this thing that all of a sudden in modern life, we're starting to pull out these elements of this yoga practice and we're like, oh, look, it works. And I'm like, well, right, there's a reason it's stuck around for these thousands of years. So we're going to talk about the modern application and the idea. I'm going to give you the yoga philosophy and ancient history background of where this comes from. And then I'm going to show you how you can incorporate it into your life. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is focusing on positive affirmations and starting each day with a positive affirmation for your day. And what this allows for you to do is it future paces you to focus on the good things. As I shared with you, I worked for 5 years as a special education teacher. I loved teaching and being in the classroom, but some of the other aspects of that career were not aligned with what felt good for me. And I hit a season of that where I was like really burnt out, super exhausted, and I was no longer enjoying it. And yet I definitely had so much passion and appreciation for how important it is. I knew it wasn't something I could stay in forever. And the thing that helped me to be able to make a shift and figure out what I actually wanted to do from a career standpoint was focusing on positive affirmations. Because I spent a lot of time focused on the negative, on the stress, on the overwhelm, on the feelings of being burnt out. And when I decided to start my day every day with something positive, it allowed for me to focus on the positive things from that point forward. And just in shifting my mindset, it shifted my attitude, which shifted my energy, which allowed for positive change to happen. And it's super easy to do. What yoga says, so this is from this book called the Yoga Sutras, and it's the very first Yoga Sutra. It says, now is the time for yoga. And this idea of yoga is far beyond what we think about it kind of in Western culture and society, which is like yoga poses and going to a yoga class and moving through a physical practice, and more about this overall way of living and trying to live in a way that allows for us to be more present and to find more balance. And all of that, the idea is that it starts right now. So now is the time to make the choice to live our lives in a positive way. So something that you can do in terms of pulling positive affirmations into your day is to just start your day every single morning with one. And the way that I like to do this, and I think the easiest time, is literally to start it before you get out of bed, like before your feet hit the ground, or as they hit the ground, before you carry on with your routine, is to think about something positive that you're going to start your day with. For me, and the one that I like to have used now for years, is that I put my feet on the floor, and the first thing I think is, today is a good day to have a good day. And I say that to myself 5 times. Today is a good day to have a good day. And what that allows me to do is to think about the future pacing and to set the intention that today is going to be a good one. So even when things get hard and even when things get challenging, and I have the opportunity in those moments to then say, okay, am I going to focus on how much this is stressful or how difficult this is? Or am I going to say, nope, today is a good day. I'm going to let this stress go, and I'm going to know that I can tackle this challenge. It just allows for you to come back to that thing. You've already made the choice that you're having a good day today, which creates an energy and a space to move from that allows you to be able to live in a more positive way and navigate those challenges with more ease. So that's a simple one if you don't have one. Today is a good day to have a good day. But I also encourage you to find a way to incorporate other positive inspirations in your own life. Each of us connects to different things, right? So I know my sister is a musician, and she's like highly motivated by good music with like cool lyrics. I listen to the Greatest Showman soundtrack on repeat. I'm not that cool. So for me, this one doesn't connect, but for her, she picks out, like she has a whole playlist of just positive songs. And when she starts her day, she moves through them and turns them on. And that puts her in this mindset of being able to work with a positive affirmation. Let me see. A little pop up here. So, or I know people, there are like books that have an inspirational quote, and you can move throughout those different books. It's like a calendar type thing where you get to then say, what is the positive, what is the positive quote for today? So you find what works for you and what you feel most connected to. For me, it's simple as saying today is a good day to have a good day. For you, it might be music. It might be jotting down something that you're grateful for, whatever that is, but start your day on a positive note and it can set the tone for the entire rest of your day. All right. And if everyone can just, let me see. Seems like sometimes the mute comes off and there's some background noise. Let's see. Let me see if I can. You can just check to make sure you're muted. I don't know if I can, or I don't know if Alia, if you're able to, or Lauren can. Looks like that went away. Okay. You did it. Sorry. Yep. I never remember how to actually mute everybody. Let's see. Sandy, I have affirmation cards on my dresser at home and on my desk work. I love that. Affirmation cards are a great way. Yeah, to be able to pull that in and just have them in your mindset and come back to them throughout the day makes a big difference. Okay, let's talk number 2. So number 1, positive affirmations. Number 2 is movement. So the mind-body connection is one of the strongest tools that we have out at our disposal. And quite literally being able to use the physicality in our body is a way to reset our mind and help to decrease stress. Movement for 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 minutes, an hour a day, in being able to kind of just get our blood pumping, get our bodies moving, helps us to release endorphins that combat stress. So movement is a huge piece of the yoga practice, and it's something that you can do super simply. And I think what people get overwhelmed with is this idea of like, I didn't have time to get to the gym today, right? Like I didn't have time to do a full workout. And instead it becomes more of this like guilt-ridden feeling about not moving enough. And then we end up not moving at all. So I want to teach you, this is my business partner, Patrick. So I'm showing him off in this triangle pose. What yoga says is this comes up in the form of asana, which is what most of us, if you're introduced to yoga here in the West, a lot of the focus is on. It's on this asana practice, on the physical poses that we move through. And it's a huge tenet of the yoga practice, depending on which lineage you follow, using the physical body as a way to affect the mind. BKS Iyengar, who is one of the kind of 2 fathers of yoga in the West who brought it over from India, says it is through your body that you realize you are a spark of divinity. And his approach to yoga and what he believed was that we use this physical practice of yoga as a way to touch our soul and to touch our mind. Just by moving our body, we can reset our energy and tap into these deeper parts of ourselves. So you can do this in 5 minutes by just literally going through and taking a walk, maybe walking around your house, jumping up and down, putting on a song and doing a dance party. Any kind of movement works. But I also want to teach you something that you can do, that you can incorporate, that can be done anywhere and in less than 5 minutes. And I mean, like, if you need a reset, you can run to the bathroom and do this, or do it from your desk. So we're going to do a simple sun breath. I'm going to teach you a seated version now. And then I'll also show you the order of what it looks like if you were to stand up and do that. So again, just wherever you're sitting, push yourself give yourself like some space where you can just reach your arms out to the side. You can stay seated in your chair. Maybe you just come right to the very front of it. You can close your eyes. I'm going to just talk you through how to do this. So on an inhale, reach your arms all the way up over your head. As you exhale, fold forward from your waist, drape over your legs, and just come to touch your toes. And then inhale, bring your arms to your thighs, lift your chest up halfway. Exhale, fold back over your legs. And then inhale, reach your arms all the way back over your head. Exhale, bring your hands to touch in prayer at your heart. We're going to do that 2 more times. So breathe in, reach your arms up over your head. Exhale, fold forward, touch your toes, reach your arms down towards the floor. Bring your hands to your thighs, breathe in, lift your chest so your spine gets long. Exhale, breathe out and fold over your legs. Inhale, reach your arms all the way up. Bring your hands to touch in prayer. Exhale, bring them right down to your heart. Good, 1 more time. Breathe in, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold yourself down over your legs. Bring your hands to your thighs, lengthen your spine, breathe in. Exhale, fold, breathe out. Good, and then inhale, reach your arms all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Release your hands to your thighs. Take a breath in and take a breath out. Crack your eyes open. Okay. So just 3 rounds there of linking your physical body to your breath and incorporating some kind of movement can help you to reset and refocus, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. There's no stress with how it looks like you're doing it at your desk. It's just about putting some kind of movement into your body to be able to get everything to reset. And this is a great thing that you can literally do at your desk if you're in the middle of a work day or in the middle of a study session, just as a way to put some movement in. I also want to show you a full sun breath standing. It's a little hard for me to do on screen, so I figured show you some pictures. Very similar cadence of having to do this. It's just that you're not in a chair, right? So you start here on an inhale and reach your arms over your head. Then as you, where am I? Sorry, start all the way on the right hand column is where we start. So you inhale, reach your arms over your head. Exhale, you fold forward over your legs down towards your toes. You lengthen your spine, bottom picture, come halfway up as you breathe in. You fold back down as you breathe out, reach your arms over your head as you breathe in, and then hands by your side as you breathe out. So it's as simple as just like basically you're reaching up, you're folding forward, lengthen your spine, folding forward, reaching back up. This is like something that you can do. You can go to a large bathroom, do this 5 times. Great way to just incorporate some kind of movement into your day, even during those times that you don't have time to like go to the gym or work out, go for a run. So super simple, good way to pull that in throughout your day. All right, our third one that we're going to talk about, obviously we've linked already that to the breath, is breath awareness. So with this one, we're going to talk about how taking a few moments to focus on your breathing has a direct impact and connection to your nervous system. In yoga, we call this pranayama, which is actually, there's an 8-limb path to yoga. And the third one is asana, which is the physical practice, the movement. Pranayama is the 4th one. So as you move throughout these tiers and get kind of higher and higher into these ideas of meditation, breath actually is considered a more challenging practice in a way than the physical stuff. And I think it's because that requires us to sit sometimes and be quiet. But the cool thing about breathing is that all of us can do it, hopefully, if we're feeling healthy. And I want you to think for a second right now about how many times do you pause and take a deep breath throughout your day? For most of us, we probably can't necessarily call to mind a number unless we're feeling totally exasperated and it's like this is so hard. But we don't usually take the time to sit and focus and connect with our breath. And the unfortunate part about that is that the breath is the bridge between your conscious and unconscious mind. And I love this fact about your breath because it's the way that it's such a fantastic tool to be able to tap into all of this deeper connection with yourself. So if you think about it, we live in our bodies and our minds, and we have conscious things that we do, and then things controlled by our subconscious or that we unconsciously do. So conscious things are voluntary actions, right? You consciously walk, if you lift your arm up, if you type on a computer, if you go for a run, if you're talking, if you're laughing, all of those things we consciously control. We have a thought in our mind and then we make the choice to do them. Then we have stuff that happens in our unconscious mind. So you don't think about making sure that your heart is beating in order for that to occur, right? That happens unconsciously. You don't think about your food getting digested. That happens unconsciously. Your digestive system just works. Those are the involuntary actions. The cool thing about the breath is it's the one thing that lives in both worlds. You can consciously control your breath, right? We just did. You can take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. You can hold your breath. You can speed your breath up. You can have a conscious effect on your breath. But it's also something that you can rely on involuntarily and unconsciously. When you go to sleep at night, you don't mentally think about breathing in and breathing out. It just happens for you. It's, as we just mentioned, you can probably go throughout your day and never think about breathing. and it still happens for you. So it's literally the one thing that lies in both planes. And the exciting thing about that is that when we bring focus to it, it joins our conscious and our subconscious together, which helps for us to feel more balanced. So we're going to practice some even breathing, just a few rounds. Again, something that you can do at any time throughout your day as a way to feel more grounded, to feel more centered when you are feeling overwhelmed and stressed. So come to sit up tall. I'm going to talk you through 4 rounds of this. Close your eyes, let your hands rest on your thighs. Take a regular breath in and a regular breath out. And then I want you to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. And then breathe out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Take a regular breath in and a regular breath out. And breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Take a regular breath in and a regular breath out. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Take a regular breath in and a regular breath out. And breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Take a regular breath in and a regular breath out. And then let that go. Crack your eyes open. We'll come back together. So even breathing, linking your inhale and your exhale to having the same amount of time, helps to make you feel balanced, right? It helps to balance all sides of our bodies. So taking time to do that 4 or 5 times, just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, letting go 1, 2, 3, 4, helps to pull everything together. This conscious effect on the breath helps to link us to also this unconscious action to help us feel more balanced. Nina, what about blinking? Do you mean like blinking your eyes as you do it? Like if you're not, I'm not totally sure I understand the question, but if you can clarify that for me, I'm happy to answer that. So even breathing is something that you can do very simply at any time throughout your day if you have a few extra minutes, just to help pull yourself in, help you feel more balanced, and allow for you to get a reset. Okay, moving on to step number 4 here, talking about being present. So taking time to appreciate the present moment has a direct impact on your overall happiness. From a yoga perspective, there's this concept called pratyahara, which is actually the 5th limb of yoga. It comes after pranayama, the breathing. And really what it translates to, so in Sanskrit, which is what the word pratyahara is in, it translates to withdrawal from the senses. So it's on the road to meditation. And it's this idea of not focusing so much on the external and being able to bring our 5 senses in, so that we're 6 senses in, so that we can focus on the 5 senses in, to focus on the internal piece of us, right? So letting go of the outside world and focusing inwards. When we think about the past and you ruminate on things that have already happened, we're really talking about usually focusing on criticism of ourselves, right? When we dwell on things like, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, that's us being a self-critic of things that we cannot change. When we think about the future, we often incorporate feelings of anxiety and fear about what's to come. I think there's a statistic somewhere around like 80% of the things that we worry about never actually come to fruition, right? We get ourselves so stressed out and worked up about things that we believe might happen, and most of them never do. And we end up spending so much energy thinking about and fearing what could be true in the future, rather than allowing ourselves to live in the present and to focus on the fact that right now, if we're here and if we're breathing, that we're okay, right? And most of them are out of our control as well. Yes, Nicole, absolutely. A lot of times the stuff that does happen that like even turns out to not be a great thing, we can't necessarily fix. I feel like I think about this all the time. Like, from a perfect example is if you want to have a hard conversation with a friend, I'm sure you can think about a time that you're like, I can't believe I'm going to have to say this to this person. They're going to be mad at me. They're never going to want to speak to me again. Or it's going to be such a big deal. Or I've done the same thing in the past with like a boss. I remember when I quit my job, I was like, everyone's going to hate me. It's going to be horrible. I got myself so worked up. And then you have the conversation and your friend's like, yeah, no, I totally understand. Right. Or your boss is like, yeah, of course. If you need to take that time off, you do you. And you're like, oh my God, I just spent like 2 days stressed out about having this conversation. It ended up being nothing. And there's that feeling of relief. But what if we stopped worrying and living for those 2 days in that place of anxiety, right? And part of that is to try to train our mind to not focus on the future or criticize ourselves about the past, and instead to be able to live more present. That's when I try to ask myself, what if it doesn't go bad and it's fine? Hard to argue with that. Yes, exactly, Nicole, right? Trying to reframe those thoughts and thinking about, but what if it's good, right? Our minds, for whatever reason, as a way to protect ourselves, usually try to imagine the worst case scenario because it gives us this, like, okay, that would be familiar, then I'm prepared to handle that. But then it also leaves us living in this place of anxiety and worry. What if we said, but what if everything turns out awesome? And that allows for us to not necessarily live in that place of fear. Being present with ourselves allows us to focus and live in a place that is more peaceful, that feels better and more positive because we're not stuck in this fight or flight situation of criticism and fear. So, how can you be present? Couple really easy things that you can do. The first is to try to focus on eating a meal with no distractions. You just have to pick one. So, breakfast could be your morning snack. It doesn't necessarily need to be a 5 course dinner. But what could you do? What would happen if you ate a meal fully focused on just your food? So, not scrolling through Instagram or whatever social media platform of choice is while you're eating, not watching TV or reading a book or talking on the phone, just sitting and focusing on the food that you're eating, thinking about where the food came from, which farmers helped to grow the vegetables, and then what kind of truck did they have to load them on in order for them to get onto your plate? And can you show a moment of gratitude for all of the people that worked to make that meal possible for you to eat? To focus on what the true flavors are. Is it sweet? Is it salty? Allowing yourself to be fully immersed in that experience of just eating. And again, it doesn't necessarily need to be this like 45-minute magical experience about food. It can be the simple snack that you have, the banana that you're eating mid-morning, just allowing yourself to spend that 2 minutes focusing on just eating and just that. The other is to take a walk with no distractions. So I want to upfront raise my hand and say, I'm not great at this. As I mentioned, I live in Hoboken, so I do walk often, and I am like a podcast fiend. Like, all I want to do is listen to podcasts all the time. So I always have one playing. I always have my headphones in, or I use it as a time to make a phone call. Very rarely am I not plugged into something when taking a walk. However, I have put myself in an experiment of saying, okay, today I'm going to go for a walk and I'm not going to be distracted, and I'm going to try to smile at people who I pass on the street on my walk. I have like a 20-minute walk to the headquarters for my business from my apartment. Trying to do that for 20 minutes and like trying to find someone that you can make eye contact with to actually smile at is shockingly hard, because almost everybody is plugged into headphones or scrolling through their phone or distracted while they're walking doing something. And then if you can find someone who does it and you just look at them and smile at them and a stranger, they look at you like you're totally crazy. And that's a sad thing, but I like have gotten the strangest looks where I'm like, hey, good morning. And people are like, we live in New Jersey. Like, this is not something that we do. Keep walking. But it does make me feel good, like taking that walk with no distractions and just allowing yourself. It doesn't have to be even 20 minutes. It can be 5 minutes, not plugged in, not listening to music, not a podcast, not making a phone call, just allowing yourself to like focus on breathing the air. What temperature is it outside? What do you see? What are things that maybe you don't really notice, right? Just something to be able to pull you into the present moment just for a portion of your day. So it's a fun experiment to do no matter where you walk. And if you give yourself, I challenge all of you tomorrow to find a part in your day that normally you're distracted on. Do it with no distractions and look around and see if you can find anybody else not distracted. It's very hard to do. And it was like pretty eye-opening for me to realize how often all of us are just like plugged into something, but it feels really nice to unplug and let that go. So take that if you will, but it's a nice way to incorporate being present into your life. Okay. Number 5. I said 5 things, and here we are at number 5 before we shift gears into presentation number 2 is to focus on gratitude. So being grateful is one of the most powerful ways to release ourselves from fear. Actually, let me talk about the next thing and then I'll give you the facts behind it. But there's this concept in yoga called santosha, which translates to contentment. And it's this idea of how can we be content with what we have now in this present moment and allow ourselves to live from this place of gratitude. I'll introduce that in a second, but I want to go back to saying something about gratitude that I find so fascinating. So I read this book once, and it's by this psychologist called Dan Baker, and it's called What Happy People Know. And he talks about gratitude and how it's the antithesis to fear, right? So our brains, it's very important and you might all know this because you're in grad school for social work, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that's brand new information, but our brains are literally hardwired to react with fear first. It's the reason that all of us are here, right? It's from our evolution. It's our fight or flight. It's our survival instinct, and we need it. And it's super, super, super important. It's the reason why when someone like throws a book down on the floor and it's a super loud noise, we all jump. Like you're not actually in danger, but it's just in our physiology that at one time, thousands and thousands of years ago, that loud noise meant that like a bear or woolly mammoth or something was going to like come out and chase you and get you. And so we had to be at the point where like loud noise, take off and protect ourselves. We don't live in that world now, hopefully for most of us. Obviously there are extenuating circumstances, but generally speaking, loud noise doesn't mean that you're actually fighting for your life. But it does mean that our brains are still hardwired to react with fear first. And it's important for us to acknowledge and accept that, because I think we give a lot of criticism to ourselves about like, I feel stressed. Why do I feel stressed? You feel stressed because that's what our brains are supposed to do. Your brain is supposed to experience the stress first to make sure that you can survive. So that's a normal feeling. It's okay to feel fearful and stressful. Like, don't criticize yourself for feeling that way. But the important thing is that we have the tools to acknowledge, okay, this is where my brain went. This is now, I'm not actually in danger. So what can I do to pull myself out of that? The second most powerful thing that we can have is gratitude. And gratitude, the cool thing about it is that it's a practice we can actually do, right? When someone says like, oh, just be happy. Like, oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's just an easy thing to do, right? Or don't be stressed. You're like, oh, great, perfect. That was helpful, right? It's not something we can actually necessarily just do. Gratitude, though, is a practice we can physically do easily, and it's the thing that wipes out fear. If you've ever been in a really, really scary situation, like truly where you're like genuinely very scared, either for the safety of a loved one or safety of yourself, and you're in that fight or flight mode, once you realize that you're safe, usually for most people, take a guess, what's the first thing that you end up saying? You're good. You thought something terrible was going to happen. Now you're safe. What's the first thought that you have? Any guesses in the chat? For most people, what it is? That wasn't too bad. Like that one, Nicole. Thank God. Exactly. Yeah. Thank God we're okay. Thank goodness. Holy moly. I can't believe that happened. Thank goodness we're all okay. You literally, your mind, once you're not needing to be in the fear, floods your system with gratitude. And what that does is it releases all the fear hormones so that you can come back to balance. This idea of gratitude is the way we can wipe out the idea of fear. And that's so cool and important because it gives us a tool that we can consciously practice all the time, right? So Incorporating gratitude into your day is a way to move yourself out of that stress and overwhelm mode. So this is an activity that's my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of my day, and that I love. It's called the best part of my day activity. And I want to be very clear, this is not a good part of my day, because there are days that are just really crappy, right? There are days you're going to have that, like, if someone's like, well, what was good about today? You're like, literally nothing. Today was terrible. It was a really bad day. It's not about a good part, it's about the best part of your day. So even when you're having a bad day, you focus on ending it with what was the best part. And it might be that it's over, right? Today was a crappy day, but now I'm home. And the best part of my day is I'm going to climb into bed right now and I'm going to go to sleep. And I'm really grateful for that. You can do this yourself, making sure like you start your day with a positive affirmation, you end your day with the best part. Or if you have a friend, a family member, an accountability buddy, it's a nice thing to do with someone. So it's a question I like to ask at the dinner table at night. What was the best part of everybody's day today? Right? What's the best thing that happened to you? And the nice thing is that puts it in relative terms to your whole day, not asking you to focus on like something that feels great where you're like, nothing, couldn't really find something good, right? It might be the best part of my day was that I held the door for a stranger and it seemed to really help them out. But it has you then focus your mind on things that make you feel good throughout your day. So then at some point towards the end, you're incorporating gratitude. I'm really thankful that was the best part of my day. I'm really thankful that I had that thing. And it also, if you start to make this a daily practice, you go throughout your day noticing, oh, I'm going to save that. That's going to be the thing that's going to be the best part of my day later when I text my friend about it, right? So it could be that you talk about that daily with someone at home, or maybe you pick a friend and you text each other every night the best part of your day. So that's my favorite exercise to do to easily incorporate that. Another one that you can do is a gratitude journal. So gratitude journal at Five Below. Oh, I love that, Sarah. That's fantastic. Affirmation cards. That's awesome. You can also, like, gratitude journals exist online, or you can just get a blank journal, right? And label the date. And then before you go to bed or at some point throughout your day, what are you grateful for today? And what I would encourage you to do if you have a gratitude journal is to make sure you get specific, because a lot of us get into these rhythms of like, we have habits that we're grateful for. Oh, I'm really grateful that I'm healthy, or I'm grateful for my family. And I believe that's true. I am grateful that I'm healthy. I am grateful for my family. But gratitude works even better if you can get more specific. So what about your health today are you grateful for? I'm really grateful that because I'm healthy, today I was able to, I don't know, go for a walk or touch my toes, or I can't think of something, or eat a healthy meal, whatever that was. Or I'm grateful for my family. You know, my sister made me laugh so hard today and that felt really good. And I'm grateful I always have someone to talk to. The more specific that you can get, the more effective that this is. And it allows you to kind of appreciate and feel that gratitude more than just going through like the habitual, oh, I'm grateful for the house over my head. Like, yes, but maybe there's a piece of like, I'm really grateful for this piece of art that I added to my, I don't know, I'm not really into art. My mom's an artist and that gene missed me. I have like all white walls and plain everything. But maybe for you, if you're like super into art and that's like something that you can look at, that's what you love, whatever it is. But get specific on the things that make you feel grateful. Okay. So where have we been? Started out with where we're going. Talked about positive affirmations, talked about movement, breath awareness, mindfulness, and gratitude. The question I want to ask you is, do you want to be 10% happier tomorrow than you are today? We're going to talk about this in the next section, but happiness is a destination and happiness is a journey, not a destination. If I could get to the point of saying to you, like, oh guys, I have the perfect recipe to like find happiness, and then you're done. Like, that would be awesome, but it's just not true, right? Like, what's going to maybe make you happy tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now is going to change about what's going to make you happy 5 years from now. I actually talk about this. Like, I think about those moments in your life that you've been working to a goal that bring you happiness. My college graduation was one that I like vividly remember. My wedding day was one that I remember. My anniversary actually just passed. I was so happy that day. But I don't wake up every day being like, remember 9 years ago when I got married? Every day is awesome because of that one day that I was so happy, right? That's a moment of happiness, and it was fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like my baseline level of happiness continues because I graduated college in 2008, right? It's this ongoing experience that we're always on the path to continue to cultivate. And so the focus, rather than I want to be happy, where there's this end game destination, I think is more on, can I be 10% happier tomorrow than I am today? What are small things that I can do in my life to make myself just a little bit happier? So as a recap, 20 minutes a day is all it takes. It could be even less. You could do all of these things or just pick the one that resonates the most with you. You start your day with positive affirmation. You incorporate some kind of movement. Those simple sun breaths are a great way to do it. The even breathing, so have some type of breathing practice throughout your day, few minutes just to tune into your breath. Become present, eat a meal undistracted, go for an undistracted walk. Think about gratitude. Do the best part of your day exercise, start a gratitude journal. And if all else fails, you do that 1 minute reset that we did at the start of the session, turning on a timer for 1 minute, taking a few deep breaths, calling to mind what's chaotic, and then making the choice to set it aside so that you can focus on the task ahead. So you have two different options. You can choose to stay tired, stressed, and overwhelmed, or you can choose to flourish in your life. And I think what I hope that you take away from this is that it doesn't need to be that during these seasons of stress, of overwhelm, of busyness that you're in, your whole life doesn't need to be self-care and downtime and vacationing and, living in meditation for hours a day in order to be able to flourish. We are going to be busy. We're busy people. We live busy modern lives. And you can take these ancient practices rooted in this practice of yoga, these things that are backed by thousands of years of proof. And in just 5 minutes a day, you can make the choice to get out of that place of feeling stressed and overwhelmed all the time and give yourself that reset to be able to have those good moments throughout your day. And I hope that this gives you some actionable tools so that you can make that choice for yourself and be able to incorporate them even during those times of like feeling crazy, right? You don't need to be happy 100% of the time in order to lead a happy life. And that's super, super important. We're humans, and like you're going to go through times that things don't feel good. If not, my positive psychology teacher, which again, we're going to shift more into that mode in a moment, but he says like, you don't need to be happy 100% of the time. Like if that's true, if literally 100% of the time you were happy, you're either a psychopath or like you're just dead. Like that doesn't even exist, right? Like all of us are human. We're going to experience those negative emotions. It's okay to be there, but then make the choice to also put these types of things into practice in your life so that you have those moments of self-care and positivity as well. So Shannon, helpful, realistic. Appreciate the misconceptions of self-care. I'm so glad. Yeah, I want it to be, because I think like it feels bad. Like I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like in the Instagram world, and I'm surrounded by people like talking about all this self-care and slowing down, and they're like in the mountains all the time. I'm like, that just is not what my life looks like. Like I don't have time to do this every single day for these long self-care practices. And then it almost feels worse because I feel like I'm like bad at caring for myself, and I think it doesn't have to be that way. It's okay if you're living a busy life right now. It's okay if you're feeling overwhelmed. That's normal. But you can also make the choice to care for yourself for a few minutes a day so you have a moment of reprieve from that. So, all right. What questions do you have? I'm going to stop sharing this real quick before we shift gears. If we were happy all the time, we wouldn't appreciate any of the bad times to help you appreciate the good times. I love that, Nina. Totally agree with that, right? I always say it's like, I love the seasons where I live, because if I lived in perfect weather all the time, I don't think I'd appreciate it as much as like days where it just rained a whole bunch of days in a row. I feel like the sun comes out and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's sunny. This is the best, right? We need the good need the bad sometimes to appreciate the good. So any questions on anything that we just went over before we shift into session 2? No, everybody's good? Okay. So there's some practical things rooted in yoga. As I mentioned, I'm a yoga teacher and trainer, so I wanted to be able to pull those in. But I'd also like to now shift gears to the other kind of half of my brain and half of my life that I thought might be useful to you. Let me see if I can just get this presentation up. Hold on one second. Okay. We're going to talk a little more specifically about things that you can do taking stock of where you're at, much more specifically focus on how to create balance in your work to support a life that you love. So obviously, you're like I mentioned, and I know you're all in a rigorous program focused on social work, you're doing field work, you're gearing up for whatever that career looks like for you. Maybe you're already working in that career path. And the reality is that we spend the majority of our portion at work, right? Of our day. We spend a lot of our time at our day doing our work. And so what I'm really, let me share my screen with this as we start to talk about this here. Hold on one second. Okay, can you all see this? Here's to happy here. The other thing that I'm super passionate about, so I am a yoga teacher, I've owned yoga businesses, but I also have become really passionate about business in general, about working in general. I kind of am a self-professed, or not self-professed, self-admitted like workaholic. I love to work. I'm very lucky that I love what I do, but I also made a conscious choice to be able to do that. And I really believe that to live happily, because many of us spend the majority of our time at the workplace, we need to make sure that work is working for us and allowing us to still live a life that we love. Because I think a lot of burnout and overwhelm happens when we get unaligned and don't find ways to incorporate that and align that with the life that we want to live. So that's what we're going to talk about, kind of some tools and things, doing a little bit of a self-survey to figure out where you're at and use that to help set goals as you look towards the future, in establishing what you want to do, ways that you can hopefully start to use some of that now. So this is my son. His name is Aris. Fun, happy picture. This was actually like almost a year ago now, which is insane. He's a little giant 2.5-year-old, but he makes me happy. Usually a happy child can help. Thank you very much for the great pick comment. Okay. Oh, what did I just do? How did that happen? Okay. All right. So we have kind of already, obviously, we've moved through one session together, but I'd really like to learn a little bit more about you. I've shared quite a bit about myself so far. Hopefully you feel like we've gotten to know each other that way, but I'd love to hear, obviously your name is already here on Zoom. We already kind of got where everyone was roughly located in the beginning, but if you haven't shared where you live, I'd love to get an idea of where you're from. And then I'd love to understand like where you're at in terms of the phase of work that you're in. So are you currently just like dreaming about what you want to do work-wise? Are you starting that field work? Are you in it? Like, are you just kind of in that dreaming learning phase? Are you starting actually working where you're hoping to end up working? Or are you like full on running and you're in it? Let me know where we're all at. Are you working full time? Are you in school full time? Because I think there's a wide range from what I understand of people in this program in terms of where everybody's at with something. So if you can comment in the chat and let me know where you're located, kind of what season you're in, that would, I guess you're all still learning, but that would also be helpful. Learning what actually in the field, working with clients and intern therapists. Awesome. Red Bank. I love Red Bank. Dreaming learning phase, school, but work in retail. Starting dreaming confused. Julia, I feel that. I've lived in there, that place for a long time. From Cold Snack. Love Cold Snack is where I went, I think, last year to get my Christmas tree, which I loved. Working, studying, dreaming. Alia, I'm so glad you're enjoying this. Woodbridge, fantastic. Milburn, cool. Studying for my second career, working, school parenting. Jersey City, not too far from Hoboken. Yeah, we're neighbors. That's awesome, Jocelyn. Yeah, cool. Wyckoff, Palisades Park, Toms River. That's where I grew up, Nicole. I love that. My family's in Toms River. I'm going there this weekend for christening, actually. Okay, cool. So it's nice to get an idea of where everyone's kind of from. A lot of New Jersey, looks like some potentially Florida and stuff, but different seasons. Okay. And I'd like for you don't have to share this, but focus, as you can tell, the best part of your day. Like I said, I shared that exercise with you before, but it's my favorite exercise. So for you right now, identifying the best part of your day today is a good way to put yourself in that headspace and mindset. Okay. Let's keep going. So what I'd like to start off with is to do a happiness check, to take stock of where we're at. So to really focus on this question of how happy are you really, right? We talk about this on a scale of 1 to 10. I want you to think about this, where you would rate yourself in these 3 categories. So you have your work, that can be your school stuff, or if you're working full-time, part-time, whatever that looks like, but your general work life, in terms of how happy are you, where would you rate yourself? Write that down. Think about your personal life. So just you as an individual, time for hobbies, interests, whatever that looks like, spirituality, personal, and then your relational. So your relationships, whether that's with your family, with your friends, in an intimate relationship, whatever that looks like for you. Overall, you can choose to share it if you'd like, you don't have to, but giving yourself that rating as to where you're at. Some stuff to consider in doing that is, what do you feel really good about that? If you're like confused as to what your number might be, what do you feel really good about? And then also what's not working. So where do you have some room for improvement? Once you write those down, you're then going to generate your overall happiness score. And so this is calculated by taking the average of the sum rating of each value category in your life. So your work life, plus the number you gave yourself for personal, plus the number that you gave yourself for your relational, total number, and then divide that by 3. So that looks like if you had like 8, 5, and 7, it's 20. Divide that by 3, your overall happiness score is 6.6. And this is assuming, obviously, this is like not an exact science, that assuming that they're all kind of carry equal weight for us. But the other thing to acknowledge is that for some people, certain categories impact their happiness more than others, right? For some of us, our personal lives is really the thing that drives our happiness, and that might take on more weight than our work life. And that can be true, so they can all value, but it's nice to have like a general baseline understanding of where you're at. Okay, so today's goals for this section is we are going to either maintain or raise your overall happiness score. Because if you're like, I'm good, I got an 8 or a 9, I'm kind of in like a happy zone. That's fantastic. So we want to figure out how to keep maintaining that, or to raise it by learning to manage your work so that it supports the life of your dreams. And that will also help to give you clarity on what that life looks like for you. And we'll work on defining the values to apply to your work in your life in order to make this a reality. Okay, so we're gonna have a quick chat about positive psychology. So I shared with you before, this is something else that I'm passionate about. A few years back, I got a certificate in positive psychology through a program called the Whole Being Institute. It was taught, mainly my main teacher was Tal Ben-Shahar, who is, he taught for a long time at Harvard and now teaches all over the world, focusing on positive psychology. And I got to learn from him, which was super, super cool. And it's all focused about happiness. And so a lot of this is rooted in principles related to positive psychology. So whereas traditional psychology focuses on answering and examining the question of what's wrong with our minds and then saying, how do we fix it? Positive psychology says what's right and how do we do more of that? And they're meant to work together. So I think there's a misconception often when you hear of positive psychology, people kind of got into this habit of people interested in that saying that traditional psychology was wrong, and that's not the case at all, right? So you need the traditional psychology to figure out in the mind like what's happening and what's not working and how do we fix that, and then also talking about what's working for people, what's making happiness, and how do we cultivate more of that in our lives. So the Martin Seligman, who's considered the father of positive psychology, says that the aim of positive psychology is to catalyze a change in the preoccupation with only repairing the worst things in life to also building the best qualities in life. And that's really what I want to help us focus on. So we're going to do this little challenge for a second and start to present some of the ways that we can do this. So we're going to tune in for a moment. And on the next slide, we're going to do a quick focus. And I want for you, once I put that up, to count how many geometric shapes that you see. There are more than 30, so count them exactly if you can, and you have 15 seconds to do it. Ready? On your mark, get set, go. My timer on. And stop. I think that was 17 steps. Okay, so stop. So now I'd like for you to answer the question, how many students were on the school bus? See a couple faces. 4. Okay, and if you've got that, what color hair did the student on the right have? Anyone orange? Okay. If you're anything like me, so some of you, I appreciate actually that we've got some good guesses here. I'll pull this up. So there are 4 students. So some of you definitely did get that. And the student on the right did have kind of that orange reddish hair. If you're like me, I was like, there was a school bus when I did this. Like, I didn't know that. I was very focused on just doing the geometric shape. So if that was where you're at, don't feel bad. Some of us do actually are able to pull that out, but not usually the majority. And that's because I was like, what school bus? That's how I am too, Lauren. And that's how a lot of people end up with that reaction. What this is meant to illustrate is the fact that questions create our reality by defining our reality, right? So at any given time, there are literally thousands of stimuli that we can focus on as we move throughout our lives. And what we do in order to be able to make sense of the world around us is constantly ask ourselves questions to help frame our reality so that we can understand and try to make sense of all of these different stimuli. The problem with that is that often we're asking ourselves questions that don't necessarily better our well-being. So a soul-crushing question, and we talked about this a little bit in the last session, is this idea of what will make me happy? And this is a question that I spent like a really, really long time on, like, what would make me happy? What would make me happy? The problem with this is that happiness is not a destination, it's a lifelong and evolving journey. And I think that when we get too attached to this idea of like, oh, I'm going to figure out the thing that's going to make me happy, and I'm going to focus on that. It works for a period of time, right? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to make that thing happen. And then we get that thing and it does make us happy for a little bit. And then all of a sudden we're still not happy anymore. And then we're like, oh, that sort of wore off. What happens next? Then we're kind of, sometimes we crash even harder because we expected that thing to carry us through for a longer period of time. A soul-saving question and a better question to ask is how we ended the last presentation. What would make me happier? How can I be 10% happier tomorrow than I am today? Starting to focus on this sliding scale. So when we live our life and we frame questions in a more positive way, and we ask better questions, we can shape a better reality for ourselves. So a soul-crushing question: how do I do work that I love? Right? That's kind of this end game. How do I do work that I love? And you can get stuck in this. And the problem of this is that your work is just one part of the sum of your overall happiness score. And if you're focusing on just like, I just want to make sure that I love my work, that will work for a period of time, but it's not going to support you in the long term. Instead, a soul-saving question is, how do I approach work in a way that supports a life that I love? The focus often, because our work is such a big portion of our day and something that most of us are so passionate about. If you're going to school for social work, it's driven usually from a place of really truly wanting to have an impact and help people. The problem is when we only focus on trying to find work that we love, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate into a life that we love living. So what I believe to be true is that it's about making sure that the job that you have works for you rather than you becoming a slave to your job. And I don't mean that in that, like, if your boss sets the rules, here's the hours that you have to be here. Obviously, there are all rules that we all have to abide to. But I mean from an energetic perspective, or from the approach that you take, making sure that you become like a slave to your work and focusing only on that, as opposed to letting your work be a portion of the contributing factor to living a life that you love overall. And that's the goal that I want for all of us to focus on. So positive change doesn't come from negative thoughts, right? We need to shift our thoughts away and ask more positive questions in order to be able to live a more positive life. Our thoughts quite literally create our reality. Those thoughts have an actual biological effect on our bodies. There was this experiment done back in 1979, I think it was, by this, I think she's a psychologist, by Ellen Langer. I believe she works at Harvard. She it wasn't like peer reviewed, but it was still like, I think, one of the most fascinating experiments I've ever seen. What she did was she took a group of men who were, I believe, like over 70, somewhere between 70 and 80 years old, who were aging and physically aging pretty significantly. And she brought them to this place that she had created. There was a control group who just kind of like stayed at a hotel. They talked about how things, like how the hotel looked. And then there was the experimental group. And what they did is they made the entire experience look like it was 1959. So look like it was 20 years ago, everything. So they didn't have any mirrors where they could see themselves as they were today. The newspapers that were there were all articles and newspapers from 1959. They were told to talk about life as if it was happening right now. So there was like things to focus on, like what's going on in 1959. So they lived for about a week as if they were 20 years younger. And at the end of the experiment, they were able to actually physically measure things that improved, like their vision actually got better when they tested out their eyes. The men were able to carry their suitcases and do things. Their bones physicality actually improved because they had spent time believing that they were almost 20 years younger and training their mind to focus more positively, and it affected their actual physical bodies, which is so totally crazy and insane, but it just shows the power of our thoughts and the powers of our mind, right? Our bodies don't, that's a typo there on the word recognize, so I apologize about that, but your body, does not recognize time or space. So most of what the body experiences, most of it, obviously if there's like severe trauma to the body, that's not the case, but is experienced and controlled by the mind. That's why if you close your eyes and that whole idea, right, when we live in the past, if you think back to like an embarrassing moment, you can feel actually embarrassed right now. Like if you close your eyes and I'm like, picture that time that you like something horribly embarrassing happening, your body physically can experience that, even though you're not in that moment anymore, right? Because the body doesn't recognize time or space. The cool thing about that is that if you spend time putting your mind into the realm of imagining your dream life, your body starts to believe that that's possible. So when we shift the focus of our thoughts to thinking about creating a life that we want to live and what that would look like, we can feel it in our bodies and it becomes more real. When we link the body and the mind, our energy shifts and we begin to attract the things that we desire the most. So you define your reality, right? Your life is made up of moments, and in every moment you have the opportunity for a thought. Each thought then defines your emotions, and your emotions create and define the story of your life. So this all comes back to this idea of being able to connect our thoughts, our questions, our experiences with being able to create a more positive reality. So your ability to pursue your big dreams for your life is fueled by the emotions that you associate with your dreams. Okay, so to create an emotional response to your dream life, you need to get really specific about how you want to live. We only have a few more minutes, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to have you go through this now, but I highly encourage you to go through this after. There is a key question that I want for you to start thinking about when you're picturing your life overall and how your work fits into that. And that's, how do you want to feel each and every day? And so this is an activity, maybe if you want to take a screenshot of this now, or you watch the replay, that I like to do that's called the Dream Life Definer. So the first thing you're going to do is pause. You're going to sit back and close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask yourself the question, how do I want to feel each day? Not asking about what you want to do, but how do you want to feel? When you wake up in the morning and you move throughout your morning routine, you go to work, you talk to your family, you come home, what do you want to feel like? For you personally, how does that feel? And just write down the list of words that comes to your mind. After a few minutes, you're then going to refine that list. You're going to take a look and get even more specific about how you want to feel. So how can you break those words down and get more specific about the emotions? And then you're going to create. So then you're going to take 5 minutes and do a free write about a dream day in your dream life that would give you that experience, a journal. So what are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And how do you feel throughout your doing this? So is it something as simple like what would give you that feeling? For example, for a long time, mine was one of the things that I didn't like that was not working. And whether this is silly or not, it was very true for me. When I was working as a teacher, I had a little bit of a long commute. I had to be up very early in the morning and I never got to sit down and eat breakfast. I was like always eating breakfast on the on the go, grabbing a smoothie or a bar or whatever that was. And when I did this, I was like, I just want to start each day sitting down and eating breakfast. Like, I want to sit and have a cappuccino is what I like to have in the morning. And I just want to sit for 20 minutes. And that was super powerful because it informed them when I was going to make a career change, something that I needed. So what did that mean? It meant that I needed to no longer have a job that started at like 6:30 in the morning for me. That was really, really important to me. So I was able to connect this action to this feeling of calm and freedom, which translated into needing to be able to sit down to breakfast. So this activity is going to help you get an idea of what that dream life looks like. Take some time. It takes like 15, 20 minutes in total, maybe, to do that. Once you move through that exercise, you're going to start to think about living by your values. So your core values set the standard for what you need to live your life authentically. And being able to do this is key to your happiness. When we can have everything in our life, especially in our work life, honoring the values that we hold true overall, that's when we can connect things to our overall happiness. So I want to talk real quick what that means, though, values versus versus rules and how they affect each other. So for me at the time, something that I valued that came out of sort of that dream life experience was freedom. Like, I needed to have more freedom and time in my life and more flexibility. The rule that I came up with that I still continue to live by is that I don't take meetings before 10 a.m. I get in, it's my most creative time. So I sit and I eat breakfast, and then I sit and I like move through creative work before 10 a.m. before I then take meetings or calls. That for me feels like freedom. And I won't accept a job. This is not true for me that goes to an office. I have a headquarters that I go to every day. I actually really I don't like working from home that much. So this is an example of what it could be, right? You get to define that rule for yourself. Another example, your value might be that you really value collaboration in your life. The rule might be, I am only going to accept a job where I'm part of a team. I don't want to work solo. Like, I like to work with people. Or on a personal life side, I'm going to join an intramural league that allows me to be part of organized group activities, right? You're creating a rule for your life that honors your values. You might value positivity, and maybe your rule is, I don't engage in any gossip or complaining with my coworkers. Not interested in it. I think oftentimes it's easy to get into like a toxic work environment, and there are always those people that just like to complain for the sake of complaining. And maybe your rule is like, I'm not part of that, right? I just don't engage in those conversations. And maybe the next part is like, when my work day is done, anything heavy that happens, I leave there at the office or school, wherever you're working, and that doesn't come home with me, right? So you define your values by think about your dream life. What does it look like? That defines your values. What do you need to feel in your life? And then how does that inform the rules that you live your life by? You can then establish your non-negotiables for what are the things that must be part of your life and therefore your work. And then what are the ideals, right? We all have like this spectrum of like things that we like. Maybe for you, you're like, yeah, sitting down to eat breakfast would be good. I don't mind my smoothie on the way to work, right? Freedom sounds good, but like, I don't need it. It's not a non-negotiable. So you need to start to kind of separate for yourself what that looks like, non-negotiable versus your ideals. And so one thing that you can then do is, after you get that all established, is do a value log. So reflect on what values are present throughout your day in that day in your dream life exercise. Categorize them. So which are non-negotiables and which are your ideals? And then if there's any missing that came out of that dream life thing, are there other values that are really important to you? And then you get to refocus on these questions. So how do I approach my work in a way that supports a life that I love, a way that my life is aligned, the life I'm living is aligned with the values that I hold? And then how can I use that to be 10% happier tomorrow than I am today? So living as a happier you requires you to take the time to define what your dream life feels like, driven by your emotions. What is the feeling that you associated with living a life that feels really good? What values do you hold that come true out of defining that dream life? And then how can that apply to the rules that you live by in your work or overall? And so what's next for you after this? You're going to move through that dream life activity, take the time to talk about and think about how you want to feel in your day, and what does a day like that look like? What would work? What would your personal life, what would everything look like if you were living in that space? And then you do a value audit of your work. What's happening now, and are you able to live by those values? Does the way you approach and your work honor your values so that it can support your dream life and help you to live more happily? And if not, what are small changes you can make now to really align with your values? I think that positivity one is a good example, right? There's rules that we all have to abide by. You can't necessarily change everything, but I know back when I was teaching, there was a group of teachers that like had been there for a long time and they just like to complain about everything. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, I don't like to sit and just complain all day. This is not serving me in any way. And so I did decide I'm going to make a rule. I'm not taking part in those conversations, just not going to be part of the criticism. Right. And I didn't. I just stopped interacting during those conversations. If stuff went there, I found a way to get out of it. I was so much happier overall in general from doing that. Another small thing in my personal life that positivity affected, that I made a choice a few years back, being informed about world events is very important to me. But I was watching the news, like many of us during the pandemic, like all the time. And I was like, wow, I never feel good after like watching the news every day. So I started making sure that I take time throughout my week to get informed of what's happening, like reading articles, checking up on current events, going through that. But I don't sit and watch the 5 o'clock news every single night so I can hear about all the really heavy, bad things that are happening. That didn't serve me in any way. That was a rule that I chose to live by, right? So you start to establish your dream life. That helps you define your values. And then you do an audit of your work life and your overall life. What rules do you need to create to honor those? Notice complaining is common in the school setting. I find that to be true, Shannon. It's a big, big bummer, but I think that that is very common. Also, work setting, it's like how everyone connects with each other. Yeah, like people complain a lot and it's not that fun. Like, who wants to listen to someone complain? It's also good to do a self-check. Like, are you like a complainer? Like, that's not a fun thing to be. Like, no one wants to be that. Like, stop complaining. It's okay. Unless you have something to complain about, don't complain just for the sake of complaining. Be an energy charger, not an energy drainer. So that's what I would encourage you to do, is to kind of define your dream life, let it set and define your values, and then let that change how you approach your work. That brings us right to 7:30 on the dot. I'm a huge supporter of like trying to stay on time, so I'll throw it back in a moment to Lauren and to Alia. But if you'd like to connect with me and you're on social media, on Instagram at kate.lombardo, not on there as much right now as I'm gearing up for baby number 2, but plan to be back there soon. And it's a good way to interact with me. I am pretty good at like responding to DMs. You can also always email me. My email is it's very long, but at yogarenewteachertraining.com. And if you're interested in any courses and you want to learn more, I'm sure you're overwhelmed with all of that right now, but my business is yogarenewteachertraining.com, self-guided courses on yoga, fun stuff like mindfulness, wellness, and astrology. I have a vision boarding course that's fun for the new year. So you could check that out. But I wish you all the most luck ever in your midterm season. I really want to thank you for your participation and your attention here, and for having me. Best of luck as you finish out the semester, and thank you for all that you do. You guys are the cream of the crop. It's so important, the work that you're studying. The world needs more people like you. So thank you for everything. So with that, I'll throw it back over to your co-chairs here and let them round this out with anything else that is needed.
So I'm just going to stop the recording.